And we're recording. So exciting. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome back to the Capacity Conversations episode 6. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I want to say we're halfway through. I mean, technically we are, but I feel like who knows what else we might talk about. So we're halfway through this current journey that we've been on. Two women from each coast of the United States. We have challenging dialogue about self-trust, transformation, and the reality most modern millennials are facing today. Do we actually have the capacity to do all the things we want to do? If you're joining us for the first time, my name is Raquel. I'm a clarity and work strategist supporting what I like to call freedom seekers. Whether you're in a 9-to-5 or solopreneur, you want to create and sustain your own peace, purpose, and prosperity on your own terms. My lovely, awesome, tremendous, beautiful co-host, Sarah, is
a real estate professional right now. I'm in the business of rewilding real estate. That's my mission, I feel like, and purpose, because I'm a nature educator first and foremost, an embodiment person. And once I discovered real estate was kind of this invisible language for how we connect to our place and ourselves and our community. My life is all about, how do we reconnect real estate as that interface to bring us closer in contact to our true nature.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. And I think I said this on the last episode. I feel like Sarah helps you build the home or redefine what that even means, the land. And then I help you make the money or redefine your prosperity. So we're definitely, I feel like we very yin yang, very complementary. We're both, I forget my brain, I'm on luteal phase right now. Cardinal signs. We're both cardinal signs. So, well, anyways, before I do this whole segue, I wanted to do a quick disclaimer in this episode. This episode is all about political correctness. So talking about what does it mean to be politically correct, how that's affecting our capacity. This is the capacity conversation. So we talk about how our society, our culture, different systems and structures literally and figuratively affect our emotional capacity, mental, financial. So this might be a bit heavy on emotional capacity, mental. So if you're in a place where you're not willing, able, ready, it's just not the time, maybe come back to it, or, we have transcripts, so you can check that out as well. If any of these topics are a bit sensitive, we just want to put it out there that it might hit home a little bit. We certainly, I think, in prepping for this episode, we're always mindful, but trying to be looking at all the different angles and just being cognizant. So, Sarah, did I miss anything? Did you want to add anything to the disclaimer?
No, well said. I was just thinking you say it so much more nice than I would to say it, or more nicer, because it being especially a topic of political correctness, it is like pushing against the boundaries of what we find, for lack of a better term, triggering, and it is it's comfortable, and also all 12 episodes of we were calling them the capacity conversations. Same idea, pressing against what we thought was the edge of our resilience, and just asking the question, can we push it a little more? So
yes,
we're here to get uncomfortable and also not rip open wounds and leave you with no balm.
Yes, exactly. I love that. Yeah, exactly. And maybe to add to the disclaimer, because sometimes they'll put that on books or something, and sometimes we want to read or get into something that might challenge us. So I love that you just said that, because if you're watching, listening us, and you feel intrigued, then don't let this deter you, because you don't know what medicine you might like all medicine is not sweet. We need the bitters. So, and
Mhm.
Sarah can go into all of that
Oh,
because she's my herbologist. So,
we have a whole episode on bitterness and resentment. I've literally done classes just on that. And how it leads to digestion and how that leads to mental health and oh my gosh, yeah.
exactly. Well, there you go, you guys. Let's get into digesting because we need this bitterness. We do. I think. Let me just start with that segue because the big topic to kind of start us off, I wanted to kind of do this overarching umbrella, like what is political correctness? How do we define it? And so I felt that was perfect with the bitterness. I feel like society, our structures, and as we know life right now, seems to be very much like buffered. I'm thinking about, the safety when we were learning to swim or the tricycles. And that's all good and fine. Like I learned on a tricycle to ride a bike. I had floaties, but there's a time and place for it. And I feel like um, going through life, adolescence, adulthood, becoming elders in society, we can't always live life protected and or safe or secure or whatever, stable, like all these S words. um, and so it's mind-boggling now to because when we look at nature, and both Sarah and I feel like we're passionate about nature. I mean, we try to see that, I think, in our own bodies and our own lives and how we're not living seasonally. And so nature isn't coddled. Nature just is, and it's wild, and whatever how we want to define wild. And it's open, it's naked, it's vulnerable. If a tsunami comes, if whatever, I'm sure that the other sentient beings, because Sarah and I also have this thing that humans are not at the top of the whatever hierarchy thing. So the other beings in life, they have their own ways to manage destruction. And I think political correctness has been used, or the intention has been to correct an imbalance, to kind of support in this, I don't know, emotional destruction, mental destruction. But at the same time, it's like we got to let go of the training wheels. Sometimes we got to be able to have our endurance, our resilience, our capacity, and that takes a lot of self-awareness. So I just wanted to kind of bridge with the bitterness and that, because I love that we started with that. But yeah, political correctness. What does it mean? What's been the point? We're recording this in November of 2025, when the Trump administration has been in its second term. And there's been so much about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, the environment. How do we talk to people in certain ways? So this pursuit of saying it right, what is right? What is wrong? What does it mean to stand for something? I have some notes on the side where I noted that it can feel like a muzzle. It can feel like we are just not able to say or speak or present ourselves in a way that is true to us. And again, it's kind of like those floaties. I'm gonna just mention like the pronouns. I feel like in one respect, perhaps, it could be like as a floaty, in the sense of maybe people want to feel like, because the language and our society isn't nuanced enough, isn't I don't know another nice way to say that. Like it blurs. I think society is very much one way or the other. And so it doesn't have the in between, the middle ground. And pronouns, for example, is a way, or I think an attempt, to kind of create that nuance. But some of the things, and this is just me like my where I am today with some of it. Um, like I don't think that pronouns should be, it's a two-way street. I don't think that it's just, let me just honor the person and let me just know off the top of my head that this person wants to be that way. I think the other person needs to have their boundary and not just lean on the pronouns. I don't know if that example makes sense, but it's kind of like, I think I told Sarah in the prep episode, my name is Raquel. In Spanish, it would be Raquel, but I'm not expecting people to pronounce it in the way that, because of, I don't know if everybody can pronounce the R. What if they physically can? What if they're not comfortable? I mean, I don't know. So I'm okay with people calling me Raquel. What I'm not okay with is people calling me Raquel or Rochelle or Rachel. Like none of that has to do with Raquel. And so I say that because the start is Raquel. But as things get diluted or like shifting, I have to hold my boundary of, okay, up to what point is this correct or what point is this disrespect? And I think with pronouns, which is why I brought the example, I feel like if somebody chooses whatever they choose, it's up to them to hold the boundary. One example I was saying in the prep episode was in a podcast group I'm a part of, I noticed a little bit of what I would call policing. Um, Nothing against police. I'm not trying to use that in a derogatory way. Political correctness. um, and the moderator, the host of the group, corrected a participant in a pronoun. Because we all saw in these little video, things, you can put whatever pronoun you want under your name. And so it said they, them. But I mean, who's to say that it's out of date? Maybe they don't want that anymore. Who's to say that, again, that person is going to speak up for their own boundary? So the moderator, the host, took it upon themselves to step in. And while the other lady was saying something like, oh, I really like this person's podcast, and it's called that person she instead of they, in accordance to their profile thing, the host stepped in, said, I'm sorry, they appear to be they, them. And then I felt uncomfortable because I hope that the person saying, call me this, is the person to call the boundary, not someone else. And I think this gets fuzzy because I know the intentions are well, and I think political correctness overall has a good, well intention. But there's this paradox, and these are one of my notes, is between being hyper aware and being under equipped. Like, I think we're just inundated with, we got to call these people by this and that person by that, and this is this and that. And not only is that a lot for us to interpret and sit with, and what if someone's boundary, because we can interpret that as a boundary, we're not okay with, like in a relationship. What if somebody, like my husband, I don't know, this is not real, Victor, so if you're listening to this, disregard. I'm just a hypothetical example. Let's say he says to me, no chocolates allowed in the house. And that's, some people could interpret that as an ultimatum. Some people could interpret that as a deal breaker or a boundary. And maybe he's allergic to chocolate, or he doesn't like to have that temptation in the house. And so he put that there, whatever we want to call that. And it's up to me now to engage with that. And I can say, okay, you're allergic. Well, he's allergic. There's nothing I can do about that. And it's no disrespect, or I don't think it would be in my best interest to take it personally, because this is a physical ailment. This is a physical thing. If it's more of a mental, emotional, like, I know I get tempted by chocolate, I'd just rather not have it. maybe I can negotiate with that boundary. So I say all of that because as we work with political correctness, and if we choose to see it as a boundary that someone or something is putting, like even at work, I'm sure they'll say, these are the behaviors, or this is the conduct, this is what we expect, the culture or whatever. So they're putting these boundaries. This is what's correct. This is what's not correct. And especially with DEI, seeing whole departments close and for whatever reason, like it's up to us, unfortunately, but then also we have power. So it's the nuance, it's the paradox. It's like, how much power do I have in this situation? Do I feel under-equipped emotionally, mentally to engage with that sort of boundary? Do I not have the time, the bandwidth to even think about it? So all of this is just to say that political correctness is a big thing. That encompasses a lot of different industries and things in our life. So I just wanted to the big thing to say is it absolutely affects so many different levels of our capacity. There's a paradox of us being hyper aware of it because the media and politics, and I'm sure our friends and family, what's taboo, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And so there becomes more pressure to deal with something that maybe, again, we're under-equipped or we're unsure about, or maybe we don't even want to engage it. And that should be okay. That could be okay. This level of what is okay, I think is the question that we reckon with. And then capacity being, we know that it's finite. We have a limited amount of bandwidth with our emotions, with our physical bodies, with our time. And so it's an honest question. How much can I give to this? How much can I interact with this? So I'm going to pause there before kind of getting into my second. But Sarah, anything came up?
Well, yeah, it's more than just hearing you explain. It's more than just what we're asked to do, or what, because when we're confronted with the opportunity to be politically correct, like with the example of Victor saying no chocolate in the house, you now have this choice.
Yeah.
Where you are being invited. I see it as like you're being invited into this cultural, almost like I don't want to say progressive because that's a really politicized word, but it is like, it is the idea of bringing our language from what it is now to a more progressed cultural norm. And I think in America, anyway, in the United States, in the world, I shouldn't say in the United States, but especially with the pronoun example, I came, and where we're from is always an interesting thing, and our context is always an interesting thing, and that's why this is such a controversial subject, is because it is the subject of all controversial subjects and how we handle them. And so that to say, for example, I'm from rural Missouri. In 2020, pronouns and the adherence to them and the request of them and the ability to choose also was still very, very foreign to many, many rural Midwestern, and not just Midwestern, but many cultures just in the United States alone, as an example. And I came to the West Coast to go to a very progressive nature school, okay? And in part of that subculture, so the West Coast, different culture than my rural, so not only Midwest, West Coast versus that. Now you have rural versus like more city life. But I was still kind of on the outskirts. So then we have that extra layer of suburbs next to a bigger city than I was used to. And that culture wanted to be very, very progressive. And so any pronoun anyone had was reinforced in the program that we will respect their pronouns. And I was there to be open-minded. I was like, I'm okay with changing my language to meet the comfort of other people. There was still a little voice in me, though, during orientation when they said, that's part of the community agreements here to be a part of this program. I took that very seriously. I wanted to respect everyone in the way they wanted to be respected, and I wanted to step into that and experience that. And this little voice in my head, when they said it's just a pronoun, it's just a word. This little voice in my head was like, but it's not just a word. It's not just a pronoun. It's not as easy as me just being okay with this external power changing my language. And in that same moment, someone that became a dear friend of mine, a trans person, spoke up and said those exact words, that it's not just a word. And I think for a little different reason than I had in my mind at that time. So for better or for worse, shifting our language from what it is to a different idea of what we or someone thinks culture should or could be, or you want it or need it to be in that your subculture, isn't always, it shouldn't be a given that it's easy or necessary, I think. That's the politically incorrect thing I want to say to start, is that it should not be a given that everyone is just going to be okay with it. And I think that's the huge divide right now, is that you have some people in the States who are like, I will not change my language no matter what you tell me to do, even though a part of them is so kind and respectful and will give the shirt off their back to help somebody right there in the moment they are going to die with the sovereignty that they get to choose their own words.
Yes.
And I think that is a human survival instinct and sovereign right to say, I will die for my sovereignty. And so I think that's some of what we're tugging at when we're asking people to change their language, and we're saying it's just a word.
Yes.
Both for my like, well, you're changing my neurochemistry, first of all. Because by the end of that year-long program, and especially 2 and 3 years into the subculture, I mean, absolutely my neurochemistry was changed. A little bit of discomfort I had on day one, gone, you're in. So I think that's just something to be aware of as we ask people to change their language and what is politically correct, because the history of the use, it seems like the history of it, it's been used kind of ironically for 100 years now, which is kind of funny. Still use it kind of ironically, but there's still this like undercurrent of, but we're trying to like change us as from this to this, and it's just really important to be aware of, because everyone's in flux, and especially these days, like what the fuck is going on, you know?
I love that. Oh my god,
ramble, but that's what's hitting me right now.
Oh, I love it. Please, because I feel like that hits on. I mean, political correctness, I feel like hits on all these different, and I don't want to, maybe this is foreshadowing, but Sarah's going to take us through some cool levels, that, you know, it's, I love how you describe the subculture versus this, and because it's like, for those who don't speak Spanish or we're not linguists, Spanish, most of the romantic languages are gendered. So the table is female because it ends in the letter A, mesa, versus, I'm trying to think of a male. What's a masculine thing? I can't think of one now. Marley, my dog is looking at me. Help me out. Well, what I'm trying to convey with that is that there are some in the Latino Hispanic community trying to literally change the language. So when the word Latinx was introduced, it was in the pursuit of gender neutral. So you're not, oh, there we go, Latino with an O. So you're not a man who's from Latin descent, or you're not Latina, woman of Latin descent, you're Latinx that tries to, or Latin, I've also seen with an E. However, we talk about generations, the older generations are like, what the fuck? What is this? And then how do you write in already, I mean, I don't know how old the Spanish language is, but there's some Arabic influences. Portuguese is another romantic language. So like all of these romantic languages that have so much history and culture because of history. Like why does Spanish, and I'm talking about Spain, architecture have like Moorish, Arabic? Oh, because those people lived there and there were gypsies and there were all these, subcultures that influenced the language quite literally. Um, there's some languages that are some words that we share in Arabic. And so anyways, what I'm saying is that political correctness has so many layers. So I love that you tapped on that. And it made me think of there's this, I think we're all living through or struggling through the transition right now of what is the overarching culture. And I don't even think that's in country anymore, like by country, because we're all so globalized that what happens in Morocco, we can all see, and what happens in the United States, we can all see. And then somebody in Saudi Arabia could be protesting because they want the same rights that the United States have. Because the so I guess what I'm saying is that I love that you talked about sovereignty, because I think that's the other end. Is like we want the evolution, we want the growth, but we don't know what we're growing towards. And then we don't know how much power we have. So like where is the agency, and are we losing agency because we're becoming so meshed together? So that, again, we're perfectly segued. My next topic was defining the terrain. So the empathy through language, recognition through representation. So some of the key points that I wanted to go is that what is it potentially becoming, or what has it become in certain, I guess, subcultures, subsets of society. I think that political correctness becomes this fear of conflict. Like, I just don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. It's like this avoidance. I don't know what it is in the relationship counseling thing, but there's like an avoidant person, there's like the anxious, and then there's, I think, the one that's neutral, that's supposed to be normal, or
well, yeah, and there's also inconsistent, or like chaotic.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. So maybe that's like all of the political, because all of that sounded political correctness, like chaotic and anxious and everything. I also think that there's a potential for identity fragmentation. That's not a word I use all the time, but basically it's just something that I was telling Sarah when we prepped. Was I feel like we're a part, we are a summation of parts, but I am not my individual parts. So I am a woman. Yes. I'm petite. Yes. I'm curvy. Yes. I identify as heterosexual. Yes. I am Latina. Yes. But all of those things individually don't make me me. It's the totality of it. So I think with some of this political correctness is like if we have to identify all these things to kind of check off all these subcultures of correctness, it's like, yeah, call me woman, she, her, Latina, I'm petite, I'm curvy, or I'm all these things, I'm curly haired, I'm short-sighted, like I'm all these things, or nearsighted. And then it's like, yeah, but or like, does that, and I don't mean disrespect at all to anybody who is in the identity formation or juxtaposing, but it's like, so what? Like, a part of me fights with that. And I was telling Sarah, like, I think out of all of my identities, I identify most with being a woman, biological woman, and a Latina, because those are the two things that have informed my life the most. Being bilingual, being brown, What does that mean religiously? What does that mean within the Latino community that also gets sliced up? Are you from South America? Are you from the Caribbean? Are you from the countries that everybody knows? Everybody knows Peru. Nobody knows about El Salvador unless it's bad stuff. And so it's like, how do I define myself even within the hierarchy of identities or the subsets? And as a woman, in the workplace, as a brown woman, in intersectional feminism, in all these things. And it's like, how do I even get into like my potential queerness? Or how do I even get into the physical, like there's so many layers. So I say this because in defining the terrain of political correctness, again, I feel like the intent of evolution and empathy is beautiful. And because there doesn't seem to be a rhyme and reason, a structure, I know we're trying to break the structure and paradigm, but we still need some structure. The juxtaposition of it all is that there becomes this fragmentation. Like we're no longer the whole, the summation. We become our parts. Like you don't say the car is an engine and the motor and the windows and the windshield wiper you say it's a car. So yeah, go ahead. I saw something, so I just want to stop.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt your flow.
No.
But you saying that, because I was just thinking, it's so contextual, and this is such a paradox, because in the times that I have witnessed people share their name, their full name, their given name, their birth name, their chosen name, right? Their pronouns, their ancestral names, where they're from, acknowledging the lands that they're currently on, and then acknowledging the lands that they're from. And not just the current inhabitants, but the previous inhabitants, and the ancestral acknowledgement, and the acknowledgement of their blood and their names. And it's like, I almost liken it to morning bird song, when birds are waking up. It's called dawn chorus. If you've ever been up pre-dawn, all of the birds, predator and prey alike, all sing together. And then as the day really breaks, it kind of fades. And so it's like this good morning, here I am, here's everything about me, here's the place I'm living, and here's my song, and isn't it beautiful, and this is the song of my people, have a good day. And I say that as like a parallel to where am I going? I think between your luteal phase and my burnout phase, I'm like, this is really fun. It's contextual, right? Because in that moment, I'm like, maybe that kind of introduction is helping them acknowledge who they are, maybe for the first time.
Yes.
And maybe this is the only place they can give such an introduction.
Yes.
Other parts of their life, that's not accepted, or it's not normal, or they've never done the research. I don't know. And there could be a time or place for that. And then when you mentioned the car thing, I was like, oh my gosh. I grew up, my dad was a car guy, and I grew up going to Costco's and old cars and everything. When people introduce these classic custom cars that they rebuilt from nothing, and it took them 40 years to do it, and all their savings, whatever. That's how they introduce their cars, is exactly like you were saying, like, this is a model, blah, 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 with the year, blah, 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 with an engine. And then and it's this, like, this bird song to the introduction of this masterpiece of a car. And it's so funny. I just drew that parallel of like, it is so contextual how we identify and what we feel like we're identifying. I mean, you're exactly right. How do we even tap into our potential queerness when we have been boxed in, either by others or ourselves, into being here?
Yes.
And what would it look like if people even boxed into to an identity that they have held for so long that they can't question anything outside of it? How do they then evolve into something more than themselves? And if they've been practicing since they were a child on boundaries and identifiers, and then witnessing someone in a new bird song of their identity, like, oh, maybe that's an evolutionary phase of them as a person.
Yes.
And yeah, and maybe they're in a community now where that can be expressed in a different
Yeah.
way or before. I don't know. Yeah, it's wow, humans and cars. It's and the work in progress and how we
Yes.
introduce ourselves is
Yes.
huge.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know about that whole world. So I love I mean, who would have known that that's how they interview? I didn't like introduce
Because it's
that's
like a
amazing.
project, so it's like an
Yeah.
accomplishment. Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, I guess in some ways, like I'm also looking at parallels. Like when we submit for jobs for resumes, like we talk about I did this and I did that and blah blah blah. So I think perhaps, and maybe this is again, I'm not trying to boohoo for the people listening. I'm not trying to boohoo or poo-poo the political correctness. Again, nuance. Like we're challenging it, we're pushing it, poking it, because we ultimately what we're striving for is balanced capacity, I think, and that looks differently for each one of us. So something that came to mind for me is like I think it's easier, perhaps, to distill the parts because it's easier to wrap that around. Like when I get asked, people ask, where are you from? Because the assumption already is she's not from here because she looks like she's not from here or because she speaks like she's not from here. And all of that is valid because they're coming to me with their own experience and their own filter. And that took time. I mean, when I tell you I'm 33 and it took me 20 plus years because that's even something with my husband when we were dating. He's a Peruvian immigrant, not to different or like not to make the same with like a Peruvian American or someone who came at a younger age. Like he came when he was 19. So again, all these contexts. He had already grew up in Peru and came here already with a somewhat solidified brain and chemistry and everything. So that culture, that context. And when he and I met, I was 25, 26 or something like that. And he asked me that, where am I from? Because in his mind and the way he was, people asked him that. And that was the way he oriented in Northern Virginia, in work, in school. And so I had such a bad taste in my mouth because I grew up in Florida, and being one of the very few Salvadorian American people, it's a very Caribbean area. So I didn't grow up with people who identified even with the same Latin culture as I did. I grew up with Cubans and Dominicans and Puerto Ricans. So I even felt like, where am I from? Who am I? And so when people would ask me, I would just say I'm from Florida, even though I was born in Virginia and I moved to Florida and my parents are Salvadorian. Like there's so much more. And then coming here to Northern Virginia, being asked the same question, and people would say, "Oh, but you look Mediterranean, you look Colombian, you look this." They're trying to filter what they know to kind of place me. And I think in the US, we have this very, I don't know, I kind of take it in a bad way. Like, what do you do? As if what you do is who you are, or what you do is make sense of how you spend time. Oh, I'm an accountant. I'm a lawyer. I'm in marketing. And then I get it. I get it. So
Yeah.
I think political correctness is like this effort of wanting to understand and empathy. And in that effort, I feel like the identity fragmentation, like we lose the people because we're trying to distill. Like I'm thinking of perfume, I'm not a perfume like I don't know that industry, but how do you get the essence of the herb or the flower or whatever? And you have to distill it and do this whole process. And then even then they add alcohol and they add whatever to kind of, so I say that because I really feel that political correctness is needed. And this was something with Sarah I mentioned on the prep call, is like feminism. I'm a feminist. I'm like, how do we even say feminism on a political correctness episode?
I just say I'm a feminist without offending.
Like, pause. I'm for women and men and people who identify as women and men. And I want us all to have sovereignty. So if that's your type of feminism, that's how I identify as a feminist. And I watched an episode on a YouTube channel called Jubilee, where what I really loved about the conversation that the feminists brought to what they called traditional wives. So this kind of debate between these two groups was feminism, I think, in essence, isn't trying to deprive people, remove people of choice. It's trying to create choice and sovereignty, however you see fit, man, woman, whatever. And I'm that's the same thing I think about political correctness. I think it's trying to give choice and a language to something that historically, so many different things have been misrepresented, underrepresented, not represented at all. And so I think this is doing what it can in the time and with the energy that we can all give it. And I think because there's no structure or law or whatever, I'm not saying we need to legalize any of this, but I'm just saying that there's no structure. So we all kind of get lost and muddled. And then, unfortunately, like a big family, we argue amongst ourselves of like, you're not saying this right. You're not honoring my boundaries. What's wrong with you? What's blah, blah, blah. And then we lose the intent, which is I'm trying to hold my boundary. I'm trying to find out who I am and discover me. And in doing that, I am also trying to let you know the way that I want to be treated. So it's two things, maybe even three, four things happening at the same time that we don't have capacity for as of yet. Or some of us do in a different way. Like maybe my husband has more emotional, but I'm more in the mental space, or I'm more in the physical. Like I just like, don't touch me. I can't with this. And he's more like figuring it out in his brain. So yeah, so I'll stop there because that was the second topic.
Well, it's like a miniature conversation almost at the beginning of every conversation. And that's what it's kind of come to. And I think that's some of what has so many people on edge and silence. And there's like this self-censorship because most people are afraid to hurt other people's feelings. And like you said earlier, someone says, this is my boundary or this is my request. Someone else is like, okay, now the ball's in your court. Like, how are you going to handle that request? Everything's contextual. So like you said, it depends on the day, maybe on how that person's going to respond. And if that person's tired and let's say misgenders you the first time they address you or something, now that other person, the first person, now the ball's back in their court. It's like, well, are you going to acknowledge that that's a human who is maybe trying and made a mistake? I've been in situations where there is no, it's like a zero tolerance. Like for the first mistake, there's this emotional guarding that happens immediately. And I can see, and I say this as someone who I'm like, okay, but I've seen that pattern and people get so tired of being their own advocate. It's exhausting. And so if you're constantly speaking up for yourself, I can see why being on edge might be more of a baseline for people who are their own voice and their own advocate in their environment. I don't know where I was going with that, but it is like this constant conversation with checking in with yourself. And I think it goes back to being a good person, which is really what this episode is all about, is like decency, human decency, and grace with yourself and others.
100%. No, and that's so true, because I like going back to the communities, the subsets, sub parts of culture that haven't been represented or misrepresented or whatever it is. That's, like you said, that's maybe the baseline. Is there already, because there's so much. Like I remember having a talk with my brother-in-law about wealth inequality, generational wealth. And he comes from Peru, different context, different culture, different way of like their economy and their politics is different. Um, and so generational wealth there looks different than here. Maybe there are some similarities, but generally. And one of the things I told him is, you know, me growing my business as a clarity coach, as someone who's trying to help people who want the help, right? I'm not gonna force people out of cubicles if they're happy there. But the people who want it and need it and are ready for it, you know, I'm here for repurposing the corporate ladder. And I know that a I'm climbing a steep hill because I don't have people in my family who have money. I don't have a team of people. Like it's all of it is on my capacity, literally, financially, mentally, emotionally, all the things. Um, Whereas maybe other people who are doing business, they're they're already on, maybe their grandfathers were in business, maybe they inherited, maybe, you know, whatever the situation may be. So what I'm trying to illustrate is, you know, I feel like I'm digging myself out of a hole I never even placed myself in, because my family are immigrants, because I had student debt and car debt that was like total of $100,000, and I paid it all off in 10 years. So who's going to grow a business and try to save and do all the things at all the times when it's just me? And so my brother-in-law was very much like, but this is the land of opportunity and you can do it. And if you just try hard, I'm like, you try hard. Like my baseline was already agitated, like my level, because also going back to, you know, people asking me, where are you from? What do you do? And people trying to distill like all my identity, lack of identity, all of my experience and all of my things into like one sentence, into one word. And so for someone, again, like my brother-in-law, who means well, again, he's well intentioned, and his way of filtering is like, but you can do it, because in his mind, his way of orienting is like, okay, he was able to get a work visa. Some immigrants, that's never possible. So he became a U.S. citizen within 5 years of him being here. That's not a reality for everybody. He was able to set up his own business. That's not a reality for everybody. So like things went in a well manner for him, but that's not is not it's not we're talking about apples and oranges. And I think that's something when we talk about political correctness is I really hope that we're all trying our best. Like, I don't think people are intentionally. I don't think people are trying to be mean or whatever. But knowing that even with our good intentions, other people have experienced other things and bring in a different context, and have a different like their desire for the world. My brother-in-law, I don't think he would identify as a feminist. I think he is more traditional and conservative, and that's fine. I still love him. We enjoy Oreos and watch The Office. It's all good. But I have had to negotiate my capacity with that relationship and how I want to be correct and approach his mindset. So I just say all of that to say that even when things are well-meaning, recognizing our own baseline, because I think that's already maybe 60%. I was going to say half, but I feel like it's more, is how we interpret, because we only have control over ourselves.
Right.
The last thing I wanted to end, and then I will lovingly hand it off to Sarah, is that capacity as compass. So we can't control all sides of ourselves at all the times. And we don't know necessarily who we're becoming or what wants to be named, what wants to be expressed and come out. And some parts of us, all of the different layers, identities that we have, or choose to have, or whatever, those parts could be just for us. So when we talk about, I love Sarah's example about the cars, because maybe, I'm sure that they emphasize certain parts of the car, like the color and the engine and the whatever else, specific things. And for me, like I said, I really identify being Latina and being a woman and being petite, if we're being honest. But I don't necessarily feel that I need to share every single thing all the time. So the context matters, my capacity. Do I feel like, in me sharing my different parts or specific parts of myself to certain people, to certain places, are those going to be well received? Do I have, do I even have capacity to engage if I choose to share a certain identity, a certain whatever? So using our capacity as a compass, really leaning into engaging, being aware of our emotional, mental, spiritual, like all the different levels of capacity, using that as a compass. How willing am I to engage in this with this person? And maybe I don't want to share this part of myself with whoever. And then the last part is that it feels like we're trying to survive ourselves or each other. There's this element of survival instinct to want to feel safe, to feel secure. That's, I think, a human lizard brain thing. And that's normal. So it's okay if we are struggling with capacity. Like I'm not here to say that you have to deal with political correctness because you have to. Like, as with anything, engage with it as comfortably, as accessibly when you feel ready, knowing that, it'll political correctness isn't going anywhere. I think it's something that's always going to be changing and evolving. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think so. It's like what we just said it's in those moments of initial interaction, but also generally of, well, how am I going to engage with this? And being honest with yourself about your own capacity. Because I'm thinking of my sister, for example, was born deaf, and her whole life has been an advocate for clear communication, because if you've ever been around a deaf or hard of hearing person, anybody, if in the moment of if they didn't catch something in conversation, like there's an eruption of laughter, the person who didn't hear what was so funny asks what. I have witnessed many times in my life, people they don't even think about it. They're like, oh, it was nothing. And they kind of dismiss that moment that someone is trying to include themselves or ask, like, I don't know where. And in the self-advocacy piece is over the years, and witnessing her through this journey over the years, I've witnessed her go through periods where she just stops advocating. And what happens in those periods is it's a self-isolation. And then when we talk about mental health and self-isolation being one of those issues, it's like, well, there was actually a feedback loop, wasn't there? There was actually a feedback loop of her trying to advocate for herself and speak up, and being turned down enough that now she's stepping away. And I think there's also a part of society who looks at people like that and is like, well, your choices are why you're depressed, or your choices are why you don't fit in. And it's like we forget that, again, there's this next level of awareness. And I think that's what political correctness kind of like scoots us towards actually, it's not very politically correct to say nothing, and then I haven't heard that actually as far as that example goes, but it's the same idea of we're asking people to subtly increase their awareness about something they probably weren't aware of before. And if we're honest, like, I wouldn't expect most people to be aware of how to interact with a deaf person, or people with hearing loss, people with vision loss, people with a language boundary between two people. I mean, I've encountered that so many times where a little bit of patience goes so far with a language barrier. And I think it's that same, I don't know. I kind of am losing the themes. I was really picking up on the themes. I remember for our prep conversation, even now, I'm like, there are themes to this topic that are so interesting to me. And I actually have them listed out. And I think I'll just go through these themes and just see where it takes us, and chime in whenever you want to, because some of this came from you, because I think you do such a good job, Raquel, of analyzing it from a very heartful place. And when I hear you speak, I hear the things that humans are struggling with within this context. And so even though I have a lot for history, and I will be there, because that is a big theme of this too, and I kind of hit that. So the theme of right and wrong, the sense of right and wrong, like we said, in those moments of people might not have the awareness to even choose. If you do have the awareness of what's going on right now, and maybe the emotions of the person in front of you, and maybe you are like, you know what, I'm going to tune in and see if I can help meet this person's needs or wants. Whether that's a right or wrong thing to do, I don't know. But if you feel like being a good person means respecting someone else's request, or even respecting their nudge towards political correctness, whatever that looks like in the moment, I don't know, you might think that's the right thing to do. I mentioned some of the most, so I grew up in a very religious culture, and they were some people were so anti-political correctness because they want the freedom of religious language and freedom of speech. And that sense of right and wrong, because it's so clear for some people, kind of pours over into this next level of, oh, but you're perpetuating the same attitude of the idea of political correctness because you are nudging people toward a culture that you deem more important. And I see this on social media just with the silly comments and the online world being what it is. But you have some people who are reminding, like, especially when the hyper divided political culture we live in right now, some comments are just, I feel like, are just there to like to trigger people, or just as like a flag post for like their belief systems. He like just comments, just shit talking the right-wingers, and got one that was like, it was like 10 different profanities in a row to trash talk something that was deemed as from the right. And then from, I don't know, and then the hating on the Jesus is king, like just those comments about like just people out there trying to just to push people towards God, and that's their that's their comment, that's their gift, is their evangelical nature of come to my side. And I think that's why so much of come to my side, come to my side, come to my side, come to my side. No, think like I think, no, think like I think. And that kind of leads into the next theme that we have listed, the sense of compassion, the sense of, maybe, and I love that you brought up privacy, because things aren't for everyone to share. And I use social media as an example, and I hear myself say it as it's something really important. It's a sign that society's moving in a direction. Because it is and it isn't. Like the online is not, it's real, but it's not actually replacing human to human interaction. Connection is, embodiment is real. I have had life life-changing Zoom calls with meditation teachers who guide me and connect with me. So I'm not having, I don't know, just to put that line in the online human connection and human connection, because in my work in real estate, that's something that I'm like, I think about a lot, because what I'm curious about is how people can live their daily lives with their daily system, food, shelter, laundry, all connection to nature, also connection to neighbors, and transportation. That in-person stuff is who, in some ways, is who you are. You are what you do day to day. And if that, I'm kind of getting down a rabbit hole here.
Okay, you're good. You're good.
But if that sense of compassion, I guess, is isolated to one area of your life, especially for us being very focused on an online presence, what you do, what you're capable of in person versus online, I think is just getting so blurry right now. And then we have this generation of children who their awareness truly is in something like a virtual reality or an augmented reality. And the technology that's coming out right now, that's allowing, I mean, the Meta glasses, I know that they're like the first edition was shit, right? Or I don't know. But like, they're going to get better. All of this is going to get better. Augmented reality, AI, I mean, to speak or think or tap your skin. I just want to highlight that, because your sense of compassion and your sense of right and wrong, whether we like it or not, is embedded in different modalities. How we interact with each other has to be embodied. And so the sense of compassion or right and wrong can be so fleeting and in some ways not our own. Like we are more our instincts and our habits and our patterns than we are a conscious choice. And so when we're met with this opportunity to either police others or allow ourselves to be policed, in this moment, because I love making blanket statements. I love saying that, you know, the ex-evangelical fundamentalist in me is like, this is right and this is wrong. But I think analyzing that shit my whole life and practicing a true moral code without the context of the church for the past 10 years, I've been able to see, oh God, I had a thought and I lost it. Oh well. But that your sense of right and wrong, isn't always available in the moment that you think it is. And so allowing yourself to be in an environment where your own mistakes are met with compassion is something that not a lot of us are even finding the space for that anymore. To even talk like this and to allow ourselves to be politically incorrect is a space that we are making for ourselves as friends. We want to struggle through our thought process in a public way. I'm glad that's more acceptable. And these in-person moments where we can discover our own truth means allowing ourselves to be really messy with our words and with our language. I am all down for that. And I say that, and I'm like, I just yesterday shared something on Facebook, and I get so nervous sometimes even resharing or something, because I'm always worried I'm going to offend somebody. But I'm trying to just be more okay with sharing being what it is, you know? And I shared an article yesterday about privacy. So I love that we're bringing this up, because it was about like the 6 things you shouldn't share with someone no matter how comfortable you are. And it was just interesting article, obviously caught my attention. And the first comment was, that sounds this is all very privileged to me. It sounded very privileged. And I was, my first thought, and I commented back, there was more to this conversation, but it's weird how privacy is a privilege these days. People are allowed to be messy, even if it's online. And I'm like, I am here for that. I am down for that. What I want to, what I said back, I want to raise awareness that transformation can also be very quiet. And milestones and accomplishment that don't make it to Facebook or aren't even verbalized are still milestones and accomplishments.
Yeah.
And that truth, like what I have here, because truth is another theme. And so that
Mm,
the struggling through the muck of
mm,
your own identity even.
yes.
And
Yes.
I love that you said that these are actually the two identities that I identify with the most.
Mm,
Um, and this is my privilege talking when I say this, that like being white isn't a big identifier for me.
mm,
And for obvious reasons, right? Because being a Christian probably was more of an identifier. It was such an identity. And I was so
mm,
that identity that when it broke apart, I
yeah.
was lost. I mean, I think I told you in on our prep episode, like I would go through the pain of losing my marriage 10 times over before I
Mm,
went through the pain of losing my God again,
mm,
because of the way I identified
mm,
that part of me. Um, but see now, and then the ability to change and question and like get super messy and lose all these, boundaries. I love seeing myself as a white person now because of these conversations, and to identify the differences and similarities and like create space. This is what we're doing. I hope that we're creating capacity within each other and maybe other people
yeah.
that across any border, across any boundary,
Mm,
any difference, um,
mm,
we can increase. I like what I said at the beginning, like push against the edge of what we think we can
yeah.
are comfortable with.
Yeah.
Um, and that's actually a similar but unrelated theme.
I just wanted to say I love the thing
Yeah.
what's coming to mind for me is groupthink is like the power of um like religion or communities, and like, oh yeah, we all agree and we all agree on how we're gonna identify or portray ourselves. But then I also thought um like something that was very triggering, very upsetting for me in the moment was we were having a talk with my mom and my husband at the dinner table months ago. And my mom worked, she's retired now. She worked at a charter school in DC. And the intent for this school, it's an adult school, was for immigrants, people who want to get a GED, learn English, learn a trade, whatever. But they're trying to progress. They're trying to evolve. They're trying to get stable in this country. And unfortunately, in this area, Columbia Heights in DC, it's kind of well known for gun shootings and just, things that people might typically associate with Black and Brown communities. And I remember my mom saying something for me offensive about like somebody that appeared, whatever that even means, queer or like LGB, and she saw them on the street. She thought, like, how do we even know?
Right.
um, and
Good
so
question.
yeah, and so I was just like, we were having this talk, and my concern was like, why are you trying to define this person? You don't even know this person. Like what? And then I felt, I don't know if I was the police in this instance. I was trying to police her of like, why are you like why is this taking up our time? And then I also found like I don't align with this community, with like my small family group in this moment. And so how comfortable, or what was my capacity looking and feeling like to kind of go to bat for this other identity community that maybe I don't identify with either, or that I struggle to define, but then I'm willing to be compassionate and empathetic for me, like how I define compassion and empathy, to my mom, because she's 60 years old, I'm 33. That's 30 years of differentiation. An immigrant, a first generation born here, like there's so much context. And
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't feel that my capacity or my political correctness would be supported here. And if I wanted to get messy in my own, I don't think this is the place.
Mm.
And So all of this, I love that even religion, I was brought up Baptist, and we went to like 10 different Baptist churches, so there was a different flavor. There's a Cuban pastor, we went to a white one, we went to all English speaking, like we tried. I mean, my mom tried Pentecostal for a minute. The one was, she didn't enjoy Mormonism, that's fine. Like, we tried this whole branch um of Protestant Christianity, and I think it was my mom in the effort of identity, like, okay, what group can I identify with that can see me as I see me, or at least give me the space.
Yeah.
And I think the hard part with this group stuff, group think, group mentality, is what if there's not a group? Like, one thing that came up for me as you were speaking was like, I mean, I can't speak for all Latinos, but I wouldn't say I'm a typical Latina. Like, I do yoga. I consider myself more crunchy, more of a tree hugger. I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. Even my spirituality is more mystical, kind of new age type stuff. I do ancestral work. I've been a job hopper. I have no intention of climbing the corporate ladder. I don't even identify with the country of my parents' birth, versus maybe other Latinas or Latinos that are very much like, I'm Argentinian American, I'm a lawyer, and I'm Catholic. Like, that's so different than how I see the world, and how I operate. And so it's like, how do you create your own thing, as scary and as lonesome, going back to the solitude thing that you mentioned? Like, it can be very, it can be very lonely to um to feel like there's no community that
Mhm.
can hold us. And so how is somebody going to be correct with me or me with them when there's no even space that can, I don't know if I had a point with that last piece, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hearing your capacity to care,
Mm,
because yeah. I don't know if I had a, yeah, I think we're both like, it's such a confusing, paradoxical thing, really. The more that
mm,
we talk about it, and the more I think about it, because it's like
mm,
the sense that we're asking other people to hold space for other people and yourself.
yes.
Um, and our own idea of what that community is and what we're connecting to has changed in the, like, since your mom's generation to ours.
Yes.
One generation, our idea of, okay, there's this community that
Mm-hmm.
I identify with, and that used to be for like our grandparents, like their town, their village, or their family, or their neighbors.
Yeah.
And from her upbringing to your upbringing, that community, the idea of the community and things we're supposed to care about, has expanded to like
Mm-hmm.
Gaza. And like now I'm tracking, and I do have some friends in Russia, but like the things I'm tracking in Russia, I'm like, am I invested in their political ordeal now? And then do I feel less connected to my own neighborhood, or sense of connection, and what am I supposed to stand up for now? Because that's actually a theme, and I'm just going to skip over these notes to get to that theme, because this is an interesting thing. We came up with this list of like hyper politicized,
Mm, mm,
often censored language.
mm.
So these are the controversies that we encourage corrected speech over, that we could find. And you mentioned some of these earlier, but the dichotomy between the feminist and the trad wife, the traditional wife.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
love that conversation. Hate speech versus freedom of speech.
Yes.
Because what is allowed to be said, like, we should be encouraged to say whatever we want. But again, if we're going to push people towards a higher ideal,
Yes.
we can't allow hate speech. And yeah, that whole conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Pro-life versus pro-choice. I
Mm-hmm.
just was in a circle this week with oh God, it was about adoption. The circle was about adoption because I'm looking into adopting, and the question of pro-life and pro-choice gets really, really blurry when you're with people who are in this adoption circle. Okay, I should back up, because this adoption circle allows for it's called adoption triad. So whether you're an adoptee or a found child, or you're an adoptive mother, so you adopted a baby, or you are a birth mother, so you gave up your baby.
Wow.
So to have all three components in one circle brings the conversation to things like these existential questions of, well, who am I? And maybe God, and it's all confidential, so I'm not going to give details, but this question of if my life was so hard because of the circumstances I was born into, that I actually question whether or not I should have been aborted, brings up this, this what is politically correct to say around pro-life or pro-choice, and it's so politicized and polarizing that I am so hungry for those types of conversations where those lines get so blurry, because I was trying to speak to this years ago, and I had friends literally laugh in my face for me trying to explain this. So here I go trying to explain it again 5 years later with a little more form to the thought that pro-life and pro-choice, even though they look different politically, are the same conversation. It is the same conversation of when does life become, and that's why everyone has different ideas on it. That's why it's so hyper-politicized. That's why you will get corrected around it. People want to police other people about it because they have such clear convictions to them, when I think it's so important. And that's why I am a proponent of like political correctness to a degree, to bring awareness to like, other people have a very different experience around that. And in one lifetime, someone might go from being pro-choice to pro-life, or pro-life to pro-choice, depending on their experiences. And so, like, I ask, it goes back to, well, what kind of a person are you? Are you someone that has the capacity to listen to someone else's story, no matter how traumatizing it is? And open your mind to pull yourself away. I mean, that's a scary thing, and I've done it. Like to pull yourself away from your own convictions is the equivalency of going into the dark and being willing to get lost. And that is terrifying. So I understand why people are so in their ways. But that's this whole conversation is, can we open that up? So a few more often censored is the death sentence versus forced labor, because we started talking about jails and the prison structure, and I think this is one that we should be talking about more, actually, because people, I mean, it's all over the online, like the feeds, about feminism, hate speech, pro-life. And not very often am I hearing people like politically, like really pushing to change other people's minds, which is really interesting about forced labor and our institutionalized prison system, because it's crazy. The United States has more people incarcerated than anywhere else in the world. And it's like, I just don't see how we have any bragging rights for that kind of a stat. We're knowing that, like, anyway. Yeah, we hit on trans women versus biological women or men. That's a big one right now, because, I mean, just the example of this is this is a really big conversation. And so I'm glad we started out with the idea of pronouns, because just this week, the videos of men being in bathrooms with young girls. Okay, that as an example, I don't care about political correctness at this point, because that as as an example, I used to be a small girl, I am 5 out, but I was at one point a 6-year-old, and
Mm.
6-year-old had an experience that scared me in my body,
Mm.
and my body was not. And so like the idea, and people have to really, if you work with kids, of course, you're aware of this. But if you haven't worked with kids in a long time, this is something I had to relearn. So maybe other people have to relearn this too.
Mm.
So small. They are obviously small, right? But a 5-year, like the sheer size of your adult body being close to a child,
Mm-hmm.
you have to, this goes back to the compassion of another person's mind, walk a mile in another person's shoes.
Yes.
Think about what it would be like to be the size of your arm standing next to your full body. And let's say you were, I don't know, like the awareness, I think, of what kids are experiencing in situations like that is not really, I don't hear that being a part of the conversation as much. I mean, actually, this video that I saw this week was a woman coming out of the Barnes and Noble bathroom videotaping a person dressed like a little girl, was
Mm.
a large
Mm.
biological male, but clearly going through transformation. And like, as a trans person, I want to respect and honor that person's journey and experiences. And this person had a protector there. As the person filming was like, there are girls in that bathroom. I'm uncomfortable. Those girls are uncomfortable. And this person's clearly being shamed in Barnes and Noble. And this other family member probably was like, no, we're gonna, like, there's this protection there. I don't know. I'm getting kind of in the weeds about it all, but the point is there's all these layers of what I witnessed is these layers of protection that are happening, and everyone has a right to protect their own sovereignty, but also their own belief system. And this is I don't love it. I don't love it at all, but I think it's so important to bring up because there should be a line. And if the line isn't protecting the innocence of children, then what are we doing? If we have to just nationwide implement a neutral gender bathroom, I mean, is that the solution? Because this was a huge conversation when I was a teacher in Seattle. We had a bathroom policy for the kids, and one day she was 4 at the time. Her little friends took her into the men's bathroom, and I was like, oh, no, let's get out of there. We're gonna go over here to our bathroom. And I went into the boys' bathroom, and all these boys are around. And oh God, I don't want to share too much of this story either, but it's important. I'm bringing awareness to this because it's something I witnessed. And this little girl had started to pull her pants down to go to the bathroom because she's innocent. She's pure innocence. And all the little boys in there too, pure innocence. If there was an adult man in there at that time, they wouldn't have, would they have, I can't, I'm there to protect them. And I witnessed something that there was a big discussion afterward about it. And I don't know, the protector in me is like, what is the answer? Because clearly in the example of the Barnes and Noble video I mentioned, the angry lady was uncomfortable and wanting to protect the children that she witnessed in the bathroom.
Right.
The family member of the trans person also wanted to protect that person. Clearly, someone was either harmed or the interpretation of being harmed happened.
Yeah.
So that's the conversation. And that's what I mean about like pro-life and pro-choice are the same conversation. Well, trans versus biological women, it's the same conversation. And the question of what is a woman, I think, has yet to be answered. And I think until we can answer that, the whole reason bathrooms used to be non-gendered. Roman bathhouses were for everybody, all ages. There's a reason we separated that shit. And it's just to protect women. And as a woman, as a young girl, like someone who, like, you just have to be aware of that. And yeah, at this point, I don't care if that hurts someone's feelings.
I want to jump on the bandwagon. I was like trying to go on mute so I can just not forget. Oh my god. So I want to say something to kind of ground what I'm about to say, and then I want to talk about a personal moment. I saw a quote on Instagram that said, "Common sense for one person isn't common sense for everyone."
Mhm.
So that for me with political correctness, I was like, yeah, because what I think makes sense for me, like I like having my own bathroom as a woman because I don't want to see men while I'm menstruating and I have a tampon in my hand, or I have a diva cup. And some bathrooms, full transparency, sometimes I'll like run to the sink and literally I have my blood that from my uterine lining and I rinse it and I dump it out there. And then because I'm trying to be cognizant of the environment and like I'd rather do a diva cup than a pad or a tampon. So it's like all these things that I, a woman, think about that men don't have to think about. Or like carrying ibuprofen or whatever. Or just fucking crying in the stall when I'm cramping. So I will say, with that, quickly, the whole JK Rowling and like cancel culture. I made a note, cancel culture. I find it interesting that because of this groupthink, like a certain group of people who are supporting trans, and I love that. Like I want communities to be supported as long as we're not disrespecting ourselves or like harming ourselves or harming another community, which goes back to like the hate speech thing. Like I want trans people to feel supported and seen. And why should I have to give up my love for Harry Potter or like my love for whatever? Like I wrote cancel culture because another one is R. Kelly, like the music of the artist with, or like Jay-Z, what's the freaking guy's name? Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, whatever.
Mhm.
Like how much do we associate everything, like going back to cutting up the parts from the whole? Like, is that person everything that they did and continues to be and all the things, or do we separate the art or the music or the product?
Yeah.
So I made the decision of like, I still rock hard Harry Potter. Like I love Harry Potter. And I will say also, there's a part of me that does see what J.K. Rowling tries. I don't know if I appreciate the way she's gone about it, but as a woman, I also like, and this goes into the personal experience that I had. I didn't know if the person was transitioning or what. I don't know. I can't define. But I went into the bathroom at a local AMC movie theater and just for a split second, okay, and I don't even know why I have to disclaim, like defend my own lizard brain, that my lizard brain is already trying to defend me. Like I like I felt scared for a minute because I'm like, I don't know if this is a man or a woman. I don't know what I'm facing with. So I don't know what my response could, should, would be. And I remember leaving the stall and I was friendly. The person was friendly to me. So I was like, okay, just the survival strategy right now is politeness and exit. And they weren't harming me. They were minding their own business. So was I. But what I'm saying is that because there's so much we don't know about what's happening with the other person, what their intentions are, what their like there's so much we don't know in such a globalized world. I personally vote for a gender neutral bathroom or like a separate bathroom because there's already unknown within the women that I may interact with in a woman's bathroom. Like and to add in more elements that are that have in that already are unstable. Like I don't know what to call it, but like um people who are the people who are transitioning, okay? I don't know what all of that takes mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and to try to put that in a bathroom setting, or to try to put that in a work setting. Like, again, I think so much of this political correctness is like categorizing. How can I distill? But I think so much of what we're trying to distill is undistillable. And so it's like, I need there to be a space that's neutral, no pun intended, like neutral, so
Mhm.
that however you want to show up, you can. Like some of the AMC movie theaters, they call it a family bathroom, and they have all the little icons. And I'm like, I'm here for that, because what if the person needs privacy with their child or children, or just by themselves? And how can society create spaces that are not just binary? Because it's like, then I don't have to feel uncomfortable. They don't have to feel uncomfortable. We don't have to do all this bashing, shaming on social media, and nobody needs to be policed or policing. Now, I do get that this comes up on, well, the people who identify as such they want to be categorized. They want to be, and I get that, but then I feel like that goes into, well, what are we doing for everybody? Are we blanket, are we doing a blanket statement that we all, like even on the coins, on the bills, they'll say, in God we trust. Well, what about atheists? Atheists don't believe in God. So now they're just blanketed in this country because the money says that we all have some sort of theology that we all don't. So
Right.
it's like, I think it's challenging so much of that. So I would just say that I struggle with this. My husband and my brother-in-law, who are, I would say, are more conservative, I struggle mentioning, bringing things up with them, because I'm not trying to identify with that group think either. And the whole cancel culture thing, like, there's a way to be messy, hopefully, that doesn't harm others. Like, in me figuring out my stuff, don't put it on you. Like, I'm not trying to make it up. I'm trying to do me. And I think the JK Rowling, I mean, I can't speak for JK Rowling, but it's just, I feel a sadness that the things that I grew up with, the whole Harry Potter stuff, and I think there are some queerness in the books. And I don't know, some people are like, is Dumbledore gay? And all this other, that's a whole other thing. But I just feel like, um, in the pursuit of political correctness, that we don't lose the empathy, or like that we don't lose what we're striving for. And I feel like we're losing it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, because that's something we spoke about before, is the acceptance. This really does come down to the acceptance and exposure of other people's belief systems and how you want to handle it. Like, can you be friends with people with a different idea of political correctness than you, or a different idea of right and wrong?
Yeah.
And I feel like when we were kids, that's what we were taught to do. And as an adult, I'm getting all this positive reinforcement to push those people out of my life.
Mm.
Or maybe I feel pushed out of their life, or maybe it's the hatred and the rudeness and the censorship turns me off so much that I'm willing to self-isolate to get away from all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, what even makes a topic controversial is that there are multiple truths to it. And that's what all of these themes, feminism versus traditional wives, hate speech versus freedom of speech, pro-life, pro-choice, death sentence, forced labor. Like, how do we deal with people who make terrible mistakes? I mean, biological versus transitioning gender. The last one on my list, actually, of these common controversial issues is one of my favorites, and we haven't touched on it much. So I want to get into a little bit, which is the capitalism versus communism
Oh
versus
God.
socialism. Because because I see this is there is a lot of encouragement. Like I kind of, this motion feels like the best for political correctness to me. This is like oh, actually your thoughts are going to go back in this direction now, just ever so gently. I don't mean to be the police, but shut up and say what I think, and it's just a funny, like the way I see capitalism has really changed. From the time that I was a teenager, I knew I wanted to start my own little business. And then in my 20s, I did, early mid-20s. And I actually got negative feedback from people close to me just for the fact that I was doing it. And like the fact that I wanted to make branded t-shirts and like marketing and stuff. And then I have more, years later in other ways, because there is this undercurrent of idea that business is dirty. And the little shit comments about how we don't need more business, or not everyone is meant to be some spiritual entrepreneur, or we shouldn't, like, we focus on making money, right? Like we look at the landscape and we see ways of earning money. I look at my life and I'm like, okay, I could do this and this and this and this, and that would bring me money. But I can't look at my landscape and identify natural cycles. And so I see why people shit on capitalism the way they do. And as a small business owner, to be able to set my own prices, to be able to set the markets I want to sell in, to be able to source my own goods, to be able, there is a lot of freedom in business too, that when it's decided for you at a different level,
yes,
the way you relate to it changes. It has to change. And I'm going to transition into my levels, my 6 levels, because this is a model that was taught to me that helped me peel away like my idea of political correctness and my own notions about what was right and wrong, and took them onto a strata. Oh, there's a cute bird right outside my window. Bye. I just love them. And and see, like, well, is this something that actually I need to defend because this is the belief system I hold, and my boundaries are being infringed upon, like the person in the bathroom. This went from a cultural conversation to a interpersonal conversation real quick, right? So that's why I mentioned earlier, like, it is a conversation worth having, and I do have opinions about it because taking something from one level and we think it applies to all levels. And so I'll explain by going through this. So these are I got this from a mentor and teacher and counselor named Dr. Thomas Griggs. Shout out to Thomas Griggs. He is in Western Washington, and I got to meet him through the Northwest Intentional Communities Association. We were board members together. And he was also my marriage counselor for a while. When Justin and I we decided that we were going to stay married. We were coming back together, and he, the way he uses these levels in communities, intentional communities, and structures of self-governance, structures of groups of people who are trying to do a lot themselves. You need to identify what level your issue is at in order to identify it. If there is conflict in the village, it needs to be addressed. Okay? It's like cleaning out a wound. You have to get clear about what the issue is. And the same thing was true in my marriage. So it's like, well, what level is this idea living at? Yeah. And can we bring it back into its like the right level? So personal is the first level. It's it's me. And I like zoom this thing. So this is this is the monologue. So your individual thoughts and feelings. This is your own values. The things that you are allowed to keep private if you want to. I mean, you don't have to keep them private, or it's not a right. I just feel like when I'm working through my own moral code and rebuilding my value system and my morality and asking myself the hard questions about what I believe to be right and wrong, it was okay with me, and it's still okay. And this is what winters are for too, mind you. Winter it's okay to have that season of deep privacy where no one else gets a right to your sacred thoughts and feelings. And if in your personal journey to let all that be public, like I've written messy blogs and not cared what people thought, but I don't know, just getting back to the privacy thing, I think it's an underrated value, I think, in this day and age. Like having AI listen to this whole thing right now, like that's just not something 5 years ago I would have thought was okay, but now it's like, well, it's just the world we're living in. So please still value, people. Moving on. Interpersonal. So this goes from the 1 to the 2. This is me and you. Like, that's why I love our conversations, because I could not have this conversation with myself, right? So the 2 people, you and me, this is dialogue. So we go from monologue to dialogue. This is observable behavior. So I can't observe all of my own thoughts and values when they're in my head, but you can see them in me the way I live them out. So we go from also the Fibonacci's. I have this right here, tattooed right here. And I was like, oh my gosh, the levels it starts with a 1 and then the 2, and it builds in and of itself. So again, these natural laws, right? So 3, it goes, this is 3 is people, us, meetings, teams. So these are guidelines, operating agreements, group processes, group discussions. Like I mentioned, the progressive nature school that I wanted to learn from. Well, it's school. I guess I've mentioned that, everyone knows. But if you want a social justice and wilderness school, that's the school you go to. If you want to study, if you want to study social justice issues in the context of nature connection, that's the group you go join. And so the group in the subcultures is really important to identify, because it's okay if it's there. And my work in the intentional communities world lately, I mean, full transparency for my journey with that, I don't know if we need more intentional communities. I think they're really, really important. I am here, and I will spend my career helping people establish eco villages and govern them and run them. And I have seen more shady intentional communities pop up in the last few years than I thought. I never thought I would see a white only intentional community.
Oh my gosh.
But they're forming, they're out there. And it's one thing to say, to acknowledge that this is our little inclusive group, our little commune. It's another thing to put it public, have a sign, and news, and be interviewed for the news about it. And that's the way I learned about this group. And I'm like, okay. And within my work in the Northwest Intentional Communities Association, there was people who wanted to house, because Washington State is becoming like a refuge state, like a safe haven state for kids who want gender affirming surgeries. There were people who wanted there was programs creating safe houses for those children. My personal belief system, I do not want to. There were other people super jazzed about that program. And I'm like, if you want to take that on, I commend you. Children need a safe house. They need a safe space. That's not the kind of group, for example, I want. That's not where my talents belong. I feel that, and I believe that, because I don't want to affirm one way or another. And I think that's what they're there for. They're on a journey of affirming something. And I don't know. I've taught kids who are in that process, and I feel I need more training. I need more idea of how to handle that. Because I don't know, I guess that's why I put myself in the different groups where you can learn and find out if this is for you or not for you. And so realizing that, I don't know, whether or not we need more groups to fraction off is still a question I hold. Because it's like, that's how globalism wins, actually. When we're all just 1,000 little tribes. There still has to be, I don't know, maybe that's a future conversation. We'll get back to that. So we've gone from personal and personal, group, 3 us meetings, operating agreements. That's why I mentioned like the community agreements. By entering that community, I was saying, okay, I agree to this. Here. And so from there, public, so many unnumbered people. You go from a confined okay, this is a program, this is a school, this is a job, this is a village, this is a town, to an unnumbered amount of people in
Wow.
the area. This is the population, mass media, public opinion polls. So it's kind of, yeah, when we say the general public, that's a layer, that's a level, that's something that is different than your
Yeah.
subculture or your group.
Yes.
And I think when people say, like, talk about society pushing them, or because that maybe this ambiguous, unquantifiable mass
Mm-hmm.
that is hard to relate to, and it's not the same kind of relation as an individual or a group, or
Yes.
So from public, the unnumbered people, comes cultural. So this is identity group. So you take the unnumbered mass and then you start to kind of subdivide them into tribes. And so these are the unwritten rules from within your identity, art,
Mm.
architecture, and storytelling. I think that's interesting.
Mm.
But do you see how, like,
That's
public
huge.
and
Yes.
are different?
Yes, because, and I think this answers why political correctness is so hard, because it's like we're trying to maybe like, for example, I mean, I again, disclaimer,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's like, please, um, I am not trying to put words in anybody else's mouth. I'm just speaking for myself. So people in the what I know, which is very little, of the trans, see all these fucking disclaimers. I can't just say what I want to say.
Right.
Oh my God. Okay, we're just gonna say it. So trans communities, I feel like they're going through very personal things in a very public way.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and that's so that shit is hard,
Mhm.
because I this is a question I honestly don't know. And I think it's a question that is asked online. When do they know that they are, or how do they know that they are, non-binary, or a woman or a man or whatever? And only they can answer that. And also the public, the culture is kind of, asking, defining. So it and like what I'll take myself as an example. Being Latina means one thing culturally, in a form when I fill out for employment. That's not even a thing, to be honest, because I have to identify that I'm um Native American, because my culture is like American, Indigenous American. So there's not even a Hispanic Latino thing unless we talk about ethnicity. So it doesn't even exist. But it also means something different to people born south of the border. They're very much like they know, versus in my own private lived experience of like, I choose to dial that up or down, or like how much do I, and so with trans, I feel like, because gender is such a societal fabric, it's like in everything. What clothes do you wear? What do you call yourself? Even the name, like Gabriel for one person is male versus Gabriella or Gabrielle or whatever is female. And to the way you eat, to the way you sit, to the like the posture, like it's in everything. And so it's such a thing of like, is the thing that we're engaging with just a private thing, or is the private thing then rippling out into public, like religion perhaps? I don't know, this could be another thing. Like for me, when I went and visited family in Central America, it was just obvious, we're going to, I don't even know what to call it, Catholic church, Catholic. That's not, probably not what it is. Because I go Baptist mass. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I'm saying. And I didn't know, but it was assumed that I would know because I'm Latina and because most Latin Americans are Catholic. But I don't. And I have seen, like, I have a friend who's Colombian and she's like Buddhist, more more into Eastern philosophy and theology. And so, up to what level is the thing we're engaging with, can it stay private, or does it, and I think it's a personal choice for certain things, but other things like trans or like religion, or I don't know, that it becomes a thing that is outward, that is external.
Mm-hmm.
Then that gets tricky, because it's like I can see how it'll go up and down those levels, but then it's also like, well, how do we even make sense of it? Because if we as individuals don't know, then what is the global, like the big culture, then it doesn't have a right to know, because I don't even know. So I don't have another point besides that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a huge point. Actually, that was in the beginning of my notes, that when we were first planning for this, like, what do people really want? That's actually, I have like a whole list of like what we came up with, what I came up with through our discussion of what do people actually want. And one of the things that was the clearest out of all of the things we decided on was that most people don't know. Most people don't know what they want, and if they know what they want, they don't really know how to get there, or it's just some vague vision. That's why I love my work in eco villages and communities and real estate stuff, because people have dreams, right? They have a dream about, I'm going to have this type of land, or I want to raise animals someday, or I would love a tiny house, or I would love a tree house, or I would love to live close to these people, or however you envision your life or your community or your close proximity. Like people just really want to walk to their main dailies, and I think that is so possible. That is all so possible. But most people don't. I think that's the messiness of it, is like figuring out how to get there, or even stumbling through the dark, not knowing and being okay with that is so messy and ridiculous. And I think it's ridiculous that people put that journey, like you said, it is a cultural experience right now. Like the trans conversation, when I was, 10, 15 years ago, it was all about just like gay marriage, like whether or not that should even be allowed. And that happened. And now it's this conversation. And I think that's we're in our early 30s, but our parents and their parents' generation, I've heard them, like every generation has their thing. I heard Jane Goodall say on like a little memorial video after she passed. And I feel like I told this to somebody, so I apologize if I shared this on the last episode, but like her saying that the Mars rover was like science fiction dreamland when she was a kid. Wow. And so now she is amazed that there's actually a little thing out there on the red planet sending us pictures. Wow. Like that was to hear her shock about that reminded me of, I do not understand the cultural picture the way I think I do. And and that's just youth. I think it's important for anyone really, but especially acknowledge where we are in history, which is why I love talking about history. In the context of, is this conversation, why is this conversation is happening on a cultural level, obviously. But the way we relate to the conversation, the way we relate to the subject matter is actually a personal, interpersonal, or group conversation. And so the question is, can we be comfortable with that identity happening and being validated on a group level, not a higher up level? And just there's one more level I haven't mentioned, and I'll give a quick summary because I just love this shit so much. Okay, so we've gone from, because the last layer is institutional. Okay. And so we go from cultural to institutional. So it's really interesting. There's only 6, right? But it's like it changes so fast. Personal, interpersonal, group, public, everyone out there, cultural, and then institutional. Oof. And the way I see it, that's why I love real estate, because institutional, it's the it. And it's the structural systems and the policies, budgets, organization of our society. And the real estate to me is that institutional invisible layer
Mm.
that we are operating at, whether or not we know it. And that question of whether it's gender or whether it's finances. I mean, that's another reason I want more villages, is more people to be able to have a gift economy, a hyper local gift economy, and for people to be able to buy, sell, and trade within their smaller communities without being reliant or dependent on a public or institutional resource system, service system, whatever that means. I mean, humans need food, we need water, we need something to dispose of our waste. And if we can solve all that on a hyper local level, we are less dependent on those higher institutions to provide, or like the public utilities. I mean, I could talk about utilities all day and like what that means and how we connect to them. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there for a second because
I don't know if this is going to derail you, but a thought just occurred to me that I wonder if so much of the struggle is like institutions or cultures are trying to do, or we see them trying to, I don't know, doing the heavy lifting work of the nuance and forming of political correctness, and those conversations haven't happened at the interpersonal individual level yet. Right. So I feel like, we're seeing all these things, and especially with the Trump administration removing DEI everywhere in the nonprofit and the government sector, and then it's rippling out into the public sector, private, because they're seeing that at the institution. So it's literally a top-down thing. Yeah. But nature doesn't work that way. I think. From what I understand, I'm not a sustainable environmentalist student. Like, this was not what I just read some books sometimes. Okay, you guys, I'm not an expert.
That's what we all do. We hear an audiobook and we're like,
that's it. Like, check. Exactly. I see nature from the ground up. Like, when I propagate my pothos plant, I trim to get the nod or the node, however you pronounce it, and I put it in water and I let the little roots do its thing, and it's from the roots. I don't know what magic, what spirit, what life is happening inside of that stem to produce roots, but I can't just take the leaf and stick it in the ground from the top. Like, I use the everything is from the bottom. So what I'm trying to say is that I don't think the political correctness needed, or like that we're striving for, is happening at the end of it. And maybe it is, maybe I'm just assuming, but it's conflated. I feel like the top is this is work stuff that leadership will say, do this thing. And then I'm like, no, stupid, because you don't actually know what I do day to day. So You're talking at me, not with me, not to me. And this is like a magnified version of that. Like a trans person. I'm sorry if I'm speaking for someone, I'm not trying to, but it's like, it's a very personal experience, I'm sure. And I don't know how long they're wrestling, they're going through it, they're feeling it, they're literally feeling it out. And for the media and the institutions to be like, you can't use pronouns, or you can't do this, and that might be a way of figuring it out. I don't know. For me as a Latina, like, there's no box for me to check on forms, so it's like, but I am this, so how strongly do I hold on to this identity, knowing that there's no literal box to place me in? So like us job hoppers or solopreneurs, like, there's no institution that can hold us damn straight. And and
I love you.
And it's like, but what are we supposed to do for income? We have to. So it's just like, unfortunately, and this is maybe just the larger thing that I wrestle with, is, how much power or autonomy or whatever am I allowed, or am I given, or am I fighting for, based off the institutions that I have to work within what I can work with, but I'm also fighting for my own, like, it's layers. I feel like it's a Russian doll situation, and it's just we don't have the capacity or the time to be like, I just want to sit with my shit. I just want to shit all day. Like, I just want to sit with this because I don't want to be pressured to figure things out before it's ready, like the winter time. And then the institutions are like, nope, too bad. This is label. This is what you are. This is how it is. But then it's like, so then it's just constant mess. Okay.
Yeah, the personal, because I'm thinking of someone who tried to run a women's club, or a women's support group or something. We don't mean for this to happen, but it is like by inserting our own political correct idea or agenda, we sometimes it's received as erasure. It's censorship to a degree, right? Yeah. And yeah, the question of like, oh man, yeah, my brain's getting tired. But what are you saying is allowed? It does go back to the levels, because the women saying that they're okay, I'm going to run a women's support group. I'm a woman, but culturally they're saying people who aren't a woman is also a woman,
right?
And so this person who was trying to run a women's support group had negative feedback from non-biological women being in the group, and so she, as an elder, was like, well, I only want biological women to come because I want it to be a support group for women.
Yeah.
In putting that out there, was so shamed that the group had to shut down, and publicly. So it's this question of, okay, this group on the third level, this group wanted safety.
Yeah.
Culturally, the public, which is the group after that, had such a reaction with, let's say, political correctness of like, no, that's not a woman. There's more to the definition of a woman, to the degree that we are now silencing groups from existing, which is the same issue that caused this in the first place, because women in their own group said that, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I have this thing about, because it's such
no, say it.
The social aspect, because this is the cultural conversation. It's funny. I'm like, I have like two ideas in my head. I have gender in my head, but also finance and capitalism in my head, because and I'm gonna have to go get food here soon. I'm realizing my brain capacity actually
no, same. You're okay.
Yeah. Because this is a social, I was going to use the word contagion, because of the rate in which it is a conversation, and the rate at which young people are transitioning. I also care about a lot of these other controversial things, like freedom of speech, choice, labor, money, because of also the rate of suicide, youth suicide. I brought this up before. Like, a lot of things I care about is to address these very real cultural phenomenons that are happening.
Yeah.
So that being said, that is a cultural phenomenon. I think because people are inherently good, a lot of people stand up without voices. There are more people being loud about things that might not affect them personally.
Yes.
So that being said, the thing I have written down is underlined is like, you are allowed to have your own convictions and beliefs, and the pressure of forming an externalist, disconnected political opinion Because the truth, you might be falling into a truth that wasn't decided by you, but it was decided on another level. So now I'm a warrior for a belief system that doesn't necessarily affect me personally or that I have lived through.
Right.
So the big, bold note that I have is don't let yourself be fooled into dying on a cross that was sold to you.
Wow.
Because I think this agenda that so many people are fighting for, whatever that agenda looks like, might not have been one that they chose to begin with. And it might not be the one that affects you in your life anyway. Because maybe you and your choices, and like to live comfortably within your group and have it validated, but that's the third level, by both your personal and interpersonal relationships and the public around you. I mean, that's why I talk about villages in their broader context so much, because like a thriving village that supports this type of people, might be healthier in Vermont than Tennessee or Texas, or I don't know, like Washington State. Certain villages out here on the east side are going to thrive differently than they would be if they were on the west side, and vice versa. Yeah, it's like realizing that if this issue is coming at me from the cultural level or the public level,
right,
what sometimes people are responding from an interpersonal or group level,
yes,
and don't even realize
yes,
that this system, the systems in place that have created these issues lie in the institutions. So all the way at the institutional level.
yes.
And so that's why I like things like codes and zoning and all these things that people just don't care about, really do shape the way we live.
Yes.
And that influences the cultural, that influences the public response, that influences how groups can even handle.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think because that's all we really want anyway, is to understand where other people are coming from.
Yes.
We want to, I think more people really do want that. Especially right now, maybe people want to know, what is empathy? What does empathy actually look like? Can we create our own identity with the freedom to be messy without the threat? The threat of people telling us what we think we should know, and the ability to wonder, the ability to be bored, all these huge things, that the ability to find peace and to cultivate joy gets further and further the more isolated and the more censorship there is, and the more self-policing. And I think that's some of the biggest grief with this conversation for me, is the loss of human creativity and ingenuity and boldness and bravery.
Yes.
Because of the fear of others or the censorship of ourselves. And I make my own medicine, because like I just said, I'm still a defender of privacy, and I still have to ask myself, even after the feedback on my Facebook yesterday, of am I private, or am I actually just scared of so
wow. I love that. The one thing that came to mind for me was, I feel like we're backwards. I mean, our society operates in such a way, like top down, that it's almost like we're waiting to be told, or like we're waiting for the guidance. But and also because we're so globalized, that it's like we don't have the privilege of having the time and the small community that other generations did. Like now, I feel like things are so lost. It's like, it's lucky people go to college to have the space to explore, not to get in debt and be a cog in a machine. But I always tell my husband, I'm like, college was the best time for me, because I was able to try all these courses, meet different types of people. I tried 3 different majors. I was like, fuck it. I don't know who I am. And I'm going to explore. And we don't have that anymore. So I feel like, we're almost waiting. And even as an entrepreneur, this is something I'm wrestling with still, and maybe I will continue to, I don't know, is like, do I wait to create something that I think people want, or do I let people tell me this is how I want to be guided? And so it's like cart before the horse sort of thing. And I feel like that's how society is currently operating as. It's like, first you know who you are, and then everything, but we don't know who we are. So yeah, it's this weird conundrum that we don't have the space, the time, the energy, and yet we're being told. But then when we finally want to explore, it's like there's censorship, there's breaks, there's things. But then it's like, no wonder it takes us 30, 40, 50 years to finally get some clarity. But then at some point that feels almost too late. And then it's like, shit, I could have done all these other things.
Yeah.
But I don't, it's just, so my only thing is, let's just give each other grace and patience, because we are all transitioning in this cultural landscape. And I hope this episode was hopeful and like giving people grace. So
And I hope it was like, I don't know, just a way, a meditation on this paradox, because even thinking about the levels just now, and college is a really good example, I think, because it is the rite of passage for it's an assumed rite of passage. It's group, the public cultural levels, like there are the institutions support the culture, which supports the public, which supports the groups, which supports the relationships in our family that tell us you should go to college because that's a good life, and that there's all this validation to support that. And in my parents' generation, my parents were the first in our family to go to college. And the stories that they have about the affordability and the ratios of income and the cost of school and the cost of housing at the time, very different conversation now.
Yes.
And the people that and you might have a similar experience talking with people who were just truly lost in their career. They don't know what they're doing. They're wondering, and like you said, it takes 30, 40, 50 years sometimes to figure out like our purpose and what we're doing and who we are. And all that's true. Okay, this goes back to the theme of truth. I think that's true. It takes a lot of humans that long, and myself included. When I'm 50, I will have more insight on who I am than right now at 33.
Yes.
And as a person in this system, in these institutions, I went to college also with like, well, who am I? Let's study. And I was finally around people who wanted to learn about the things I wanted to learn about. And I didn't realize that even though to the degree that my personal level 1 experience was highly influenced by including the institutional levels, because I think there is incentive in this country to keep adults financially dependent and like psychologically dependent on this machine. And I don't know what the machine is. I hesitate even calling it the machine or the system or whatever. But the ways in which people can be products, become products, I think is something to really pay attention to, because I believe what is truly a right is a community, and that community will take you through the rites of passage that is required for you to feel like you know who you are. And I do not think it takes until 25, 30, 40, 50 for people to be confirmed, like in your soul who you are. And that doesn't even require an identity. I think, but I'm a very spiritual, like I would say these days I probably should say I'm more religious than I am, because the order of real, I don't know, it just helps me put boundaries on things, and to feel like you know who you are. I mean, I meet teenagers who I was a teenager who had this deep sense of truth, and even though I'm still kind of figuring that out, being gifted a clear identity I don't know, maybe it doesn't have to be so traumatic and painful.
Yes.
And I think that's it feels that way because our personal identities are being stretched to the institutional level right now.
Yes, exactly.
And that's just so, it doesn't feel natural.
No. Wow. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't say to you all that we had answers. We said that we said that we are creating a space to wrestle and reckon and reconcile and all the like I want to do a whole thing on like rejuvenation, restore, rewind, and so I just feel like we have this space to come to hopefully help us and others feel seen, heard, rested, and like it's messy. And so hopefully we help untangle. I have this quote I saw and I made it into my screensaver. Everything must come apart to know itself. And so I feel like that's what we're aiming to know ourselves, because honestly we don't have communities and villages to help. And I feel like that was something maybe we talked about in a previous episode. I mentioned Tad Hargrave, where he was like, it was, and if you all don't know, he does marketing for hippies. He has a whole wealth of stuff on YouTube. And so he talked about how there would be elders and people that would notice us, like the individual, and they would help in discerning who we are and stuff. But I feel like now with the globalism and there's so much to care about and to think about, we don't even have energy or time for ourselves. And so then we lose ourselves, because then we're like, maybe I'm that, maybe I'm that, maybe I'm this. And then it's like, it takes a lot of trial and error that could have been simplified if we started smaller, if we just crawled instead of being forced to run. So I hope that, I mean, I love our space. I think it's so awesome. So I hope that other people got peace and hope from this. Yeah.
Me too. And just the time. Yeah. Speaking a bit to the generational piece just now. We talked in our prep episode about the scatteredness, about like, I think that's some of the disengagement is just from our own sense of scatteredness. And to the money piece, a lot of millennials have been forced, like, and going back to the levels, you've been forced from your group, which, like I said, could have been a workplace or interpersonal, like your home, your family. In order to survive in 2025, we have to work more. We have to just simply work more hours, and being forced out into the public, into this unnumbered level of like, we are now a part of the public. We're less a part of our group and our interpersonal relationships. We are forced to be, that's what I mean about like people becoming products. Like the institutions created us to be products for the public and for the culture, and less for our own groups and our own personal experiences.
Wow.
And even though I feel like those identities are being weaponized on an institutional and cultural level, and we're responding as individuals to that level, and without I think that's what keeps us so freaking busy. Is, and in war and in civil war too, is not addressing the issue where it lives, and instead thinking, yeah, like you said, the answers, we are waiting for it to come. We are waiting for the institutions to tell us, okay, you can be yourselves now. And they're not gonna say that. They are like, because money reigns supreme, like they have a vested interest into keeping humans, adults, as products in the public arena. And I think that's
Wow.
I don't know. I feel like I could just like ramble on, but I hope, yeah, the awareness is what we're helping people cultivate, and the capacity to be a good person, because part of that scatteredness I just glanced at this note is what I think you said this of, we don't feel like we have the capacity to do the emotional labor for other people. And that's what political correctness is asking us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so until we get our own levels in life and put our house in order, and do have some sense of identity and boundaries for who we are, we can engage and address all those issues in their rightful place instead of being so exhausted and stretched so thin that we can't even acknowledge that that light policing that our friends or family are trying to do for us is compassionate.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what side you're coming at it or want to call it policing, not everyone, but people do have different ideas of what they deem as compassionate.
Yes.
And whether you're correcting someone's pronoun or correcting someone else's who's correcting someone's pronoun, you can ask yourself in that moment, like, is this respectful? Am I being compassionate? What's your intention in how you respond, you know?
Wow.
So it's all about being a good person, you know, and not being afraid, fearing the unknown, and being okay with evolving.
Wow. And then we have a playlist. So if you all are interested, we'll find that in the description, and stay tuned for episode 7. Thank you all so much.
Yes. Thank you.